Welcome back, everybody. Once again, we're doing one of those videos that we don't want to do here on the channel because we have bad news to bring to you. And that's bad news not just for folks who believe in the Second Amendment, but it's bad news for anybody who believes in the Constitution or civil rights. So I realize that's a bold statement. I stand by that, and we will explain to you why that is here throughout the video today. So for those who haven't been following, a gentleman named Matt Hoover has been convicted of multiple felony charges, essentially for doing in-video ads here on YouTube for a product that was deemed legal and then eventually deemed illegal. There are a number of reasons why that conviction could be challenged in appellate court here in the United States because it's a violation of U.S. law in many different ways. We're going to talk about a couple of them here today. I am not an attorney, full disclosure. I do know one of the attorneys that worked on this case, and I know a lot of people who've done a lot of research into this case. So I'm pretty well versed on it. Not certainly an expert, but I know enough to be dangerous, and we're going to walk you guys through some of the elements of what happened in this case and why this is such a gross injustice, what has happened to these two men. We're going to talk primarily about Matt Hoover, who runs a YouTube channel called CRS Firearms, and he made videos up until last week. Like literally last week, as of when I'm filming this, he was posting videos to YouTube as a free citizen of the United States of America. That has changed as of Friday. And basically, I made some social media posts. If you guys aren't following me on social media, I recommend you do. That's where you typically will see my posts first. I made some posts there when it happened, and I reached out to his wife that evening just to try to figure out how I could help as best I could with the resources that I have at hand. And more will be coming on that down the road here on the channel, so stay tuned for that. Also stay tuned to my social media because Matt has two children, obviously, and a wife, and he was the primary income earner for his family, and now he's literally, as of when you guys are watching this, as of when I'm filming this, he's rotting in a jail cell because of, well, because of some reasons that we'll get into here in just a second. Additionally, another person was sent to prison, has actually been there for over a year and is facing over 100 years in jail. Because of this, the gentleman who I'm referring to owned a company called AutoKeyCards. I'm not sure if that was the name of the company actually, but basically they produced an item called the AutoKeyCard. Now, we're gonna have to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here before we can come back to the big picture. So what is an AutoKeyCard? An AutoKeyCard is a product that is essentially a piece of metal that's shaped the size of a credit card, and on it, it had engraved into it with laser engraving, so no depth or anything like that, so just etched into the surface of it. What could be the drawings for an item that could be cut out and then eventually machined into what's called a lightning link. So for those who don't know, a lightning link is a device that can be used to cause some, not all, the vast majority of AR-15s you cannot use a lightning link in. I don't know the numbers on this, but I would estimate at least 80% of AR-15s in America you absolutely cannot use a lightning link in due to the geometry of the little receiver. See my video on full auto AR-15s if you guys are interested in that. But anyway, mechanically, most AR-15s in America are now unable to use this type of device, but some of them you can. And basically, if you were to cut out along the lines that were on the card and then do some machine work to it to make sure you get your angles right, it can be used to simulate full auto fire in an AR-15. That's absolutely true. That said, what we have to discuss here is the difference between doing an ad for a product that is not a machine gun, the ATF determined was not a machine gun, and then the act of actually creating a machine gun. Those are very separate things in my opinion. They should be very separate things for not just the First Amendment reasons, but also for Second Amendment reasons. And so what basically happened was this company was selling these items and the sales weren't that good. They reached out to the folks over at CRS Firearms, Matt, and offered to do in-video ads for his channel. If you guys watch this channel, I do in-video ads all the time. This is something that most of us do because our channels are demonetized, so we have to earn a living one way or another if we want to work in this space. So Matt reached out to his ATF office, and this is not something that's in dispute. No one is disputing the fact that I'm about to tell you. Matt reached out to his local ATF office because Matt was until Friday, I guess, was a licensed firearm dealer, also has what's called a special occupational tax, or a SOT, you'll hear it called. So he has the ability to manufacture machine guns legally with the permission of the ATF and the Department of Justice. So he reached out to his local ATF office, asked if the AutoKeyCard was illegal. His local office told him it was not. At that point, he commenced doing in-video ads for this product to drive sales to the AutoKeyCard. Now, the AutoKeyCard was marketed as a number of different things. Matt did 100% use language like to order it from an IP address that was more difficult to trace, things like that. And I realize some folks are already typing that down below in the comments. But again, this is the First Amendment. You have the right to say things like that in America. He wasn't calling for violence. He wasn't calling for someone to be murdered. He wasn't calling for some type of injustice against a group of people. He was simply stating how you could order a product in America that was deemed legal by his local ATF office that he verified before he ran the ad in his video. So he did a number of ads throughout, I believe, the course of about a year on his channel. At some point during that time, the ATF put out a letter. The ATF issues opinion letters. For folks that don't know, the ATF issued an opinion letter stating that the AutoKeyCards were illegal. Owning one was illegal. And the reason for that is, just to sort of deconstruct that for folks who aren't really up on firearms laws in America, generally speaking, the ATF regulates items as machine guns that can be used to turn things into machine guns. I realize that sounds crazy because in any other area of law that would never fly, but that's the way it's been regulated over the years in America. So as an example, on an AR15, if you have, or better example, on an MP5, if you have an auto sear, so an MP5 is a submachine gun. There are a ton of civilian versions that are semi-automatic only in America, like millions. And if you have the actual sear component, the item that enables the firearm to fire in select fire or full auto versus semi-auto, just the possession of that sear is considered a machine gun. So that's the way the ATF views it. They view that little piece of metal as a machine gun. That's the way they regulate that piece of metal. And what they were trying to do here, after Matt had already verified that it was not a problem, was to say that the AutoKeyCard is now a problem, and that AutoKeyCard itself, the actual device itself, is in fact a machine gun. So, obviously we have machine guns here on the channel, and they were trying to say that a piece of metal that looks like a credit card is now a machine gun. So, okay, at that point, Matt stopped posting ads for it on his channel once it was deemed that way. So that's a very important piece of the case, is that, as an outsider looking at this case, it's hard to say that there was any ill intent in terms of violating the law. But like I said, I know people are already talking about the words he used, and in the press release, the DOJ released it, talking about the words he used. But again, we don't want to talk about that. He's talking about words, just like I'm saying words right now. And ultimately, he is in prison because of words. And so, essentially, the ATF issues a statement saying these items are illegal. They arrest the manufacturer of these, send him to jail, and then do an investigation. Prior to that, from what I understand, a bank had turned him in, saying that he was trying to withdraw too much of his own money. Once again, problems in America. If you're trying to withdraw too much of your money, they claim it's structuring to avoid taxes. And that's part of what went into this investigation. In that investigation, they found the payments to Matt. And then, of course, Matt gets arrested. That was over a year ago now, as of when I'm recording this video. And he has been facing charges for over a year. I've texted a couple times with him over the course of that year. However, Matt is not like a personal friend of mine. Again, I know him tangentially because we do the same thing. But essentially, he's been awaiting charges, living in Wisconsin, having to travel down to Florida very frequently, incurring the costs that go into that. A lot of folks got behind, and myself included, a crowdfunder that he put out for his legal fees when it first came up. And the actual crowdfunding site actually suspended his payment, didn't allow it to happen, and that was over 6 figures of income that was withheld from his family that Americans gave to him. Now I'm happy to announce that there is a Give Send Go, and Give Send Go has never been a problem for these types of things for his wife and his children, as well as his legal defense going forward, which we'll talk about here in just a second. This video is probably longer than I wanted it to be, but anyway, so that will be down below if anybody wants to help support his family as well as his legal defense. The link to do so will be down below. But essentially, the whole thing goes to court, goes to trial, which is rare. Most of these types of charges never go to trial. So I was actually just kind of how I viewed this case, right? When it happened, when he was arrested, I was like, man, the ATF must be trying to send a message to people like myself, telling them that don't poke the bear, if you will, which I think is dangerous language. But anyway, trying to send a message. I thought he was arrested simply to send a message, and I thought nothing would ever come of it, because surely someone speaking in America about a lawful product could never be construed as multiple felonies. But it went to court. When Matt did not plea out to it and decided to take his chances in court, they actually went to court. I thought it was going to be dismissed because the ATF surely could never think that they were actually going to get a conviction from 12 American citizens saying that this man was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of conspiracy to traffic machine guns and other counts as well. But that's essentially the big charge, that he was conspiring to traffic machine guns with Justin Erving, the owner of AutoKeyCard. Now, think about all of the things that go into that in terms of like elements of the case. To get someone beyond a reasonable doubt to say that that's what happened because somebody used their free speech on YouTube for an in-video ad on a product that was confirmed to be legal, that's a big step. So I was like, when it went to court, I was like, there's no way this is going to even go to the jury. I'm sure the judge will dismiss it. And his attorneys, to their credit, did file the judgment to have the case dismissed because it is so absurd. There is no way that anybody who is acting in good faith, whether it be within the Department of Justice, the ATF, or any other organization that worked on this case, whether you be the prosecutor, the ATF agents, which we'll get to here in just a second, the ATF agents themselves, who testified in that case, could do so with good conscience. If you're an ATF agent, I believe it's an 18 series is what they call it, which is the federal law enforcement agents, because there's different types of ATF agents, who has law enforcement powers, the powers to put American citizens in prison. They're going to testify in this case to put a man, a law-abiding American, a father of two, a husband, put a man in prison because he talked about a legal item on YouTube, that you could testify in that case and not say anything other than what I'm saying right now, i.e. you took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, which includes the First and Second Amendment, and you're going to go up there and testify that this man is a criminal. Shame on you. Shame on you. So getting to those ATF agents, when it actually went to court, several things happened, and I recommend following John Crump. If you guys do not follow John Crump and his YouTube channel, he's an investigative journalist. He writes for AmmoLand as well. I actually talked to John earlier today. But he did a day-by-day summary of what happened in the case, and you can go watch that series. It's not very long to get a good idea, but essentially the ATF agent, one of them who was an expert, took the AutoKeyCard, dremeled it out, and took 4 of them, was able to get one of them to work, and it didn't even work. So I want to explain that to the gun community out there, folks who are familiar with firearms. The geese are going nuts. They must not be happy with this ruling either. But the ATF's expert witness, who spent over 40 minutes with a Dremel, according to his own testimony, getting this item to work, modifying it, not in the original form, which is key to this case for folks understanding it, particularly folks who are not familiar with firearms. This is not a readily available item. You cannot just put it in and the gun becomes a machine gun. That's not how it works. This man who's an expert in his field, with machine equipment to make this thing into a machine gun, could only get one of the 4 to work. And when he got it to work, it didn't actually work. It didn't function in a full auto. What it did was getting hammer follow. So what that means, for folks who don't understand how an AR-15 works, basically a full auto one anyway, when the bolt carrier group comes forward, here's our auto sear, the trigger is hooked on it, the bolt carrier, the full auto profile version of it, trips that sear. At that point, the hammer goes forward, strikes the firing pin, the round goes off. That's how a properly functioning select fire AR-15, which is really an M4 or an M16 at that point, functions. And he was not able to do that. What he was able to do was to get the hammer to not hook onto the item that would have been the sear, meaning that the hammer just keeps cycling under spring tension. So it's not actually even functioning in full auto. In fact, many of you who own AR-15s may have had malfunctions where your gun doesn't work correctly due to whatever, having hammer follows. So it's not that it's a full auto item at that point, it's just having a malfunction. So again, took 4 of these items, got one of them to quote unquote work and turn it into a machine gun, and that was used as evidence. Now this man testified, this ATF agent testified against Matt Hoover in this case to lock this person up after unsuccessfully getting 3 of these items, and this man's an expert, 3 of these items to not work, and he's there saying that these items are the equivalent legally of machine guns. What was going through that person's head when they were testifying? I mean, truly, how is that person waking up today free in America? I'm assuming this man has a wife, kids, family. How is that man looking at his wife in the eyes? How is he looking at his children in the eyes, knowing that he just locked up another fellow American citizen for this item? It's shameful. It's absolutely shameful that any federal agent would do this. Continuing on to the precedent that this sets for other people, not just YouTubers, not just gun YouTubers. There's a huge precedent that this is setting. If you think about it, they're saying that an item that is legal, item A, and then they'd say it's not legal when no law passed during that time period. The ATF, as an executive agency, is just saying it's illegal. And they're saying that somebody who was paid to advertise that item now has committed conspiracy to traffic that item and is guilty of multiple felonies punishable by over 40 years in prison. That's what they're saying. That's the precedent that they're saying. So let's just keep it in my realm here in the YouTube world, in the Second Amendment world, right? So over 10 years, pistol braces, stabilizing braces, a device that is designed to help initially disabled veterans shoot their firearms more accurately, have been declared legal by the ATF. The ATF has issued numerous amounts of letters, opinion letters, stating that they're legal. They are not stocks. They do not turn your gun into an SBR. Well, as you guys know, earlier this year, the ATF said that they do. All of a sudden, magically, after over a decade of being completely legal, the ATF has said that as of May 31st, if something doesn't happen in the courts, everyone who owns one and hasn't registered it as a short barrel rifle is now guilty of a felony and will be facing up to 10 years in prison. Well, think about someone like myself. I never got paid to do any ads for braces, but if they had offered during the time, I would have. So if they had offered to run ads for stabilizing braces, I absolutely would have done one. I think they're great products. I think they help Americans in a number of different ways, and I truly believe in the folks who are manufacturing the braces. I believe they're doing good work for the citizens of America, and it's a good product. I believe in it. I would have accepted money for an ad for that, but let's just say I did. Then now, as of May 31st, when they're declared illegal, and all of a sudden I would have been conspiring to somehow traffic in short barrel rifles, which is exactly what they're saying Matt did with machine guns. Both of those items are regulated under the National Firearms Act. Both of those items are felonies if you don't have the proper paperwork for them. And that would just be me, right? So there's other things that go on. For example, in the Second Amendment space, Form 1 suppressors. There's a number of different folks that have done videos on Form 1 suppressors, i.e. a bunch of parts that you get together and they're nothing. The ATF for years said that they were perfectly legal to own the parts, but if you drilled holes in them, then it became a suppressor. Well, in order to drill the holes in it, you'd have to fill out a form. It's like I was just talking about, paperwork. So that has been perfectly legal. Well, as of last year, the ATF all of a sudden said that you couldn't do that. You couldn't have those parts kits. Retailers couldn't sell them. Okay, fine, we have new rules. But then if they were to go back and retroactively say that anybody who either ran a YouTube channel and talked about them, or anybody who was at the range and told their friend how they could get one, all of a sudden they're guilty of conspiring to traffic silencers. Do we understand the precedent that that's setting? You can look at it in other fields, right? Like self-driving cars. Those are heavily regulated by the federal government, right? If there was a new technology that came out and all of a sudden, you know, all the different regulatory agencies said it was good, and then there was an accident and then they said it was bad, we get that, right? I don't think agencies should have the right to say that, but we all understand the parameters that we work in with our legal system, right? All of a sudden, if they went back to the YouTube car channels who talked about that technology, were those folks all of a sudden guilty of conspiring to traffic in that technology? There's a lot of rabbit holes that this can go down. You guys can see where it can go. It's very, very dangerous. This is an extremely dangerous precedent. And honestly, everyone, that's to get back to my original point in this video, should be very upset about this ruling. I don't care if you are liberal, conservative, whatever. Your civil rights are infringed upon by this ruling. Your civil rights are threatened to talk about whatever you want to talk about. The only speech that needs to be projected is objectionable speech, right? I think we all understand that. Anyone who understands the history of liberty and the history of the First Amendment understands that. So whatever you deem objectionable is the speech that needs to be protected, because if people didn't deem it objectionable, then it wouldn't need to be protected, right? We all get that. Okay, enough of that. Anyway, I suppose that is my overall comments on this case. I am abhorred by it. I'm abhorred by the fact that it ever happened in the first place, the fact that it went to court, the fact that a jury convicted these people. What is wrong with these jury members? These jury members deliberated for hours. What is wrong with them? What was going through their heads? How did they think in any way that this man was guilty of conspiring to traffic in machine guns? How did they think the man who made these AutoKeycards was guilty of manufacturing machine guns? This is insane. Honestly, it's one of the worst cases I've seen for civil rights in decades. It's among the worst I've ever seen, and folks need to get behind this. Unfortunately, there was one organization that did help with the legal defense of this, but most of them didn't. And I understand why they didn't. I'm not getting on them. Normally in these types of videos, I call for folks to support those organizations, but in this case, they really didn't. What I'm calling for you to support right now, as of right now anyway, is this fundraiser for Matt's family and his legal fees. The fight isn't over. There still are chances to appeal this, and both before the sentencing and then if the sentencing happens, after the sentencing. And this needs to be overturned. Honestly, when I made my original post, I think on Friday, after the news of this came out, I think I said something along the lines that every single journalist should be covering this. This should be front page news. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're quote unquote conservative Fox News, if you're liberal CNN or MSNBC. This is a threat to everyone's civil rights. If we don't understand that the police state that is being constructed in this country threatens everyone, then they'll just pick us apart. I don't care who it is. So anyway, I suppose that's all I have for you guys. If you guys are new here and you like this type of video, unfortunately I make them more often than I want to. So definitely hit the subscribe button, follow me across my social media, sign up for my emails that you guys see here on the various websites in your screen, so that way I can go direct from me to you, because obviously these types of videos do get censored. It is what it is. And that's all I have for you guys. Thank you all for watching. It's a truly disappointing situation, and more will be coming on this in terms of how we can help Matt, how we can help his family. So definitely stay tuned for that. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you in the next video.